Hello, my name is Stephanie Carmona, and I'm with Whittier College, and I'm going to be talking about language and culture. Um, Up there, that's a portion of some of the adults that we work with and some of our students. All right, so I wanted to start off by being able to provide our mission for our program for SEPI. So you guys I'll let you read the part in white and I'll read the yellow part out loud. So SEPI strives to encourage and empower our community to use their strengths and passions to create and share with others their voice and knowledge. All right. So how do we promote culture and language with our adult learners? And to be honest, I had a little bit of difficulty trying to think about this because in my brain, it's a lot of it. It's just kind of like, this is how we just do it. This is how I know how to do things. It just kind of comes from the heart, right? So I want to shout out Kathy because, we had a really good conversation and it really allowed me to just be able to step back and reflect about yes, but you're doing something. What are you guys doing? What do you do in this space, right? So, and Leslie, thank you for, inviting me to be a part of this panel, because otherwise I don't think I would have had the opportunity or would have done it myself to reflect in that sense. So how do we promote culture and language? So some of the ways that we try and foster language and culture into our program is through some of the technology classes that we have with the adults. So one example is when we have an activity. So this activity could be a project, whether it's a digital story or a podcast, or 2 years ago, we worked on a book together. There's three things that I think that are important that we do intentionally. One is provide space, just a safe space, and time to think. Right? So oftentimes when we have the adults in our space, it's hey, we have an idea. What do you guys think about this? What would you like to do a digital story? Would you like to write a book? So we give them that space to think about it. And sometimes it's on the spot when we're in class. They're Steph, this is you're asking me something really big. So oftentimes it's even you know what? Maybe they have to leave our space and go to their homes or wherever they feel safe, think about what they would like to share or talk about, and then kind of come back. And that leads into the second part of the tell me more model, right? So oftentimes we'll get adults that are hey, what do you think about this idea? Or they'll share something and just simply asking them tell me more, or wow, that's amazing. How did you do that? We've seen that with this model, it leads into them now wanting to share it in a bigger group, larger group, so with maybe some of their peers. But something that's important is not only to allow that space for them to share it, but oftentimes when we're in group discussions, we'll see that someone's sharing and we'll have someone else, another adult learner, that'll kind of jump in, make a little side comment. So even just the ability to redirect them and okay, can we allow them to finish? Or hey, you weren't done sharing your story. Can you please finish it? Or having that space to do that. And that's something that not only we do, but my college, my students do it, and the adult learners themselves do it as well. I'm gonna move along. So our goal is to intentionally create opportunities where these adults have the choice to tell their own stories and share their voices, right? Another way that we do it is, another example is we do college class visits. I'm going to be using Marta as an example for the rest of the presentation. So we go into these classes so that the adults can, they're the experts when they're going into, and I'm going to use a Spanish class as an example. Marta knows Spanish. It's her first language. She goes in there very confident. She facilitates group discussions. That teacher and learner role is being interchanged between the student and our adult learners. And also they have ownership in that space. So another thing that's important too is having good communication with the professor, finding partners, key partners of people that believe in what we're doing, so that they can allow the space to let Marta have complete ownership of the class. If Marta has an idea, the professor lets her run with it, type of thing. Something that's been really interesting is that when we started doing these college class visits, our intention was like, we're going to start with Spanish because it was just like we have connections with the Spanish department. And, you know, they're going to feel comfortable there. But we've actually, a lot of our parents have now gone into like social work classes, child development classes, education classes, not only as like, to come into groups and like help facilitate discussions, but even as like guest speakers, which is awesome. And to conclude, I'm going to share a quick example. So this past fall, Marta was able to go into a history class. And here you see her like presenting in front of students. And here is during a Spanish class, they actually danced with some of the students. I think we had like the earthquake, the drill. So she went out there and like we had him dancing out there. But most recently, the history class, you can see Marta in the middle. So with Marta, going back to like the 3 steps of how we get them to like share, Marta had shared last year about how when she was living in Mexico, her and her husband, boyfriend at the time, they experienced the student movement in 1968 for Tlatelolco. They were there. She shared it once with me and I was like, whoa, that's amazing. And part of it is because she had been working on a digital story. And I think after seeing her final product, she said, wow, maybe next time I can talk about this. And because they have that space to kind of talk about these things, when she was in a Spanish class, I forget what we were talking about, but she said it. And the professor and the students were just like, what? Like you were there? And it was just so cool to see her be so comfortable, like to share that, because it's also like, it's as much as we were like, wow, that like you were there, that's cool. Like for her, it's also, those are very like hurtful, like those are memories that are very dear to her. And later on that day, I ran into the history professor, Jose Orozco, Dr. Orozco. And I kind of just mentioned like, you won't believe what I learned today about one of the adults that we work with. And his first thing was like, Stephanie, we're reading about this in my class. I'm teaching modern Mexico, a modern Mexico class. And he asked, do you think she would want to come into my class and be as a guest speaker? And I was like, I don't want to speak for her, but I think she would. Let me ask her. And sure enough, when I went to her, it was an honor for her to be able to go into the classroom and present. And the students were so sweet. Before her presentation, she had actually like typed out what she was going to say and had asked me if I could translate, so I could translate for her. And let me tell you that I only translated for like 2 minutes, because after that, she felt comfortable just like speaking English. And, you know, she didn't like that wall or that, you know, sometimes she like herself, she'll say, oh, I don't speak it very well. Like all of that just like went out the door, and she presented, and the students had so many questions for her. And this is just one of the many examples I can give, but this is one of the most recent ones where we see that. So the college visits are something that we really like work towards, like being able to take them into the classrooms, and also as an experience. Not only is this a great experience for like Marta, but also for like our students to be able to see that like you're not just learning from textbooks, like like these are real people, these are people from your community, and they have a lot to tell us and teach us. So thank you.